Good morning to you. I'm Kathy Hernandez. Zach Lajway is off today. Now let's get to the race for the White House. Texas Latinos prefer former President Donald Trump over President Joe Biden in a supposed rematch this November. That's according to a new poll from the University of Houston. Here to talk about the poll and these numbers is Mark Jones, a political science professor. Good morning, Mark. We see you often, and we got some big news this morning. What are the numbers telling us, and what's that difference between Trump over Biden?
Well, Trump has about a 10-point advantage over Joe Biden in the presidential election as we look towards November, which is up from his 5% victory over Biden back in 2020. So if anything, the former president has expanded his advantage over the current president.
And why do you think those numbers are showing this now? Why are Latinos now preferring Trump?
Well, so one of the difficulties that the Biden administration has had is that his approval ratings are lower among everyone across the country, but especially among Latinos, in part because the Latino electorate tends to be a little more volatile in that it tends to support the side that it believes is doing the best job. It's a little less tribal than, say, the Anglo or African American vote, which tends to stick with the party. So you see more shifts. And for many Latinos, the situation on the border is seen in a very negative light. Some believe that Biden is doing too much. Many believe he's not doing enough, but a common denominator is they're not happy with his border policy. There's also some negative views related to the economy. In spite of the numbers sort of that we see from economists that are good, the sentiment among many Latinos is that the economy is not doing as well under Biden as it did under Trump.
And how do these numbers compare to the election result in 2020?
So these are in terms of the Trump's advantage is higher. It's about 4 points higher. The big difference is the swing among Latinos, though. Biden had a 17-point advantage among Latinos back in 2020. Right now, Trump has about a 7-point. Now, that could narrow, but if Donald Trump stays even with Latinos, then his strong advantage among Anglo voters effectively gives him an easy victory over Biden here in Texas.
Is this shocking, this development that now Latinos in Texas are preferring Donald Trump?
I don't know if it's shocking. I think it highlights some of the problems that the Democratic Party has in terms of the Latino population, in that especially the Biden administration has not done enough to in terms of outreach to the Latino population. And I think it also highlights the strong diversity within the Latino population, that it's not a monolithic group. And as a result, policies that may seem good for people on the East Coast don't necessarily apply to Latinos in Texas. And where it becomes, I think, especially problematic for the Biden administration is that two key battleground states in the 2024 presidential election, Arizona and Nevada, have a population where about 1/4 of voters are Latino. And if the president runs into the same problem with Latinos in those two states as he is running into in Texas, then that could essentially make the difference between winning and losing the 2024 presidential contest.
Now let's talk about the March 5th primary coming up. Does Donald Trump have a significant lead over his opponent, Nikki Haley?
Oh, yeah, but without question, it's effectively 80-20. President Trump has a very strong advantage over Nikki Haley, and it's across every single demographic group. There's really no group where Haley has a majority. She does a little better among college-educated Republicans, and she does a little better among Republican primary voters who don't identify as Republicans, but rather as independents. But she's underwater across the board. So even if she makes it out of South Carolina, and actually is still competing on March 5th, it's going to be a landslide victory for Donald Trump.
Talk about how Joe Biden is looking for the Democratic primary as well.
Biden's in very good shape over there as well. The only, I think, concern Biden has on the Democratic side is that Latino Democrats, while they don't really have an alternative, Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips aren't much of an alternative, are a little less supportive right now of Biden and more willing to say they don't know. But at the end of the day, I would expect Biden to be somewhere in the mid to high 80s in terms of his proportion of the Democratic primary vote.
Mark, what else did the poll find? And also, I know that will there be a lot of changes from now until March or even November?
Well, March, there could be some changes, particularly if Nikki Haley drops out before Election Day here in Texas. Now, certainly much can change between now and November. But our polls are showing what we tend to see in Texas, where Republicans start off with a roughly 10-point advantage statewide. And so we're seeing that reflected both in the presidential race, but also in the Senate race, where Republican U.S. Senator Ted Cruz enjoys a noteworthy advantage over his two principal potential Democratic rivals, whether it's Congressman Colin Allred from up in Dallas or State Senator Roland Gutierrez from down in San Antonio. Cruz enjoys an advantage there. And I think one of the real problems that Democrats face is that the Biden administration and Joe Biden himself is very unpopular among voters. And so for Texas Democrats, having Biden at the top of the ticket represents a liability for the party. And unless things change in terms of his approval ratings, we're likely to see Republicans do very well in Texas this November.
Political science professor Mark Jones, thank you so much for all you do and for your insight as well. Take care.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.